I was hunting a deer that was knocking on the door of 200.
Dear
Just
God.
an absolute giant deer. And he was living in an area that was very tough to hunt. It wasn't a very big property, but it had a lot of like tall CRP native grasses, and he spent a lot of time bedding out in that. So there really wasn't, at least from a bow hunting perspective, there wasn't a ton of places where you could get close to him. And so I had had a number of encounters with him, played cat and mouse with him, and there's a lot of people hunting this deer. Um, but there's one particular hunt that I wish, I don't know, I don't for sure know what I would do differently. Um, but just the encounter was so surreal, and to have pulled it off in that situation would have been, one of my most memorable hunts. But um, I knew he was living out in the CRP, and so I ended up going out. I had my cameraman. This was back when I had a cameraman film, and I had him actually sit in an elevated blind where he could just watch the whole field. And I went out on the ground, and essentially hid behind. It took me, I think, over an hour to get into position, just because I was going by other deer and just like belly crawling and trying to get to the spot where I thought he was bedded in this little pocket. And so I was basically going all in on him coming out that evening from that pocket, and me getting a shot at him when he stepped out of the tall switchgrass. And sure enough, he was in there. It was almost like it took me too long to get to the spot, and I think I potentially made just enough noise trying to set up, just a little rustling or something. The doe came out. He was following the doe. The doe turned broadside, and I could have shot her. And he, just typical mature buck, just didn't do exactly what she did. And I don't know if he had heard me set up, probably 10, 15 minutes prior to that. Um, and he was coming to investigate, but he was kind of on high alert the whole time. And he walked right at me. And I still have, it's one of my favorite still shots, but the still shot and from the cameraman's probably 200 yards back. So, that perspective when he zoomed in looks like the deer's on top of me. And in all reality, he's probably like 15 yards, but facing right at me. I couldn't draw back and shoot him. He would have bounded right away. But just looking up, I just remember looking up at a deer of that caliber. I think he scored like one. The neighbor killed him. I think he scored 198 or 199. But
Good
on the
God.
ground, looking up at a deer like that, it looked like 300 inches at that point. Um, but that's still one of my favorite still shots. Is you can see me duck down, and then the deer standing over me. Just a giant. So that's, if I had to pick one, that one just popped in my memory now. But that was one that was definitely a close but no cigar on.
Yeah, Buck
I'd
was
say
looking
so.
over like, I'm not that stupid. I see you down there.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm going to give you one good still shot for your memory, but you ain't getting a shot off.
190 inches. For the people listening, like, describe that buck.
And he had everything. He was one of those deer too that, like, you knew he was going to be something special, even like as a 3-year-old. The 4-year-old, he actually might have scored a little bit more. He had more junk as a 4-year-old than he did as a 5-year-old. But I think he was a mainframe 9 or 10, if I remember right. But a lot of extra junk around his brows, and some junk and off his tines too. Just a giant deer, just a beautiful deer. And I had so many cool trail cam pictures of that deer over the course of the season too. Just a fun one to look back on. Just one of those that got away, but a cool memory.
Yeah, there's no better thrill than on the ground either. That's the best.
Oh, I know. It doesn't. I would probably do it a lot more often. It doesn't mesh well with self-filming. It's I like the challenge, but there's also a crossing point where it's just like, what are you doing? So it doesn't mesh well with self-filming very often. Otherwise, I'd probably do it, a lot more often. But I enjoy anytime I get to hunt on the ground. It's just a different experience.
I shot about a 60-incher in a field in Kansas, and I was hiding behind a pile of rocks. There was 3 rocks, and
Yeah.
the grass was about as short as your freaking lawn, and I popped up above that rock and shot him, and I was like, well, he ain't very big, but I was like, that was really awesome getting to shoot one off the ground. I
The
thought it was pretty
experience.
fun. Oh yeah.
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 All those Kansas folk and on Facebook let you know about it too.
Oh yeah, I had a guy help me get a recovery dog. The deer only went like 70 yards, but it was real close to the private. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get a dog just in case. And we found the we found the deer, and they posted it on Facebook. The guy that got the dog, and he said, and the guy said, "Typical non-resident, come here and shoot a dink." And I was like, oh yeah, well, I can't argue with you on that one.
See, that's why what kind of goes along with what we were saying earlier, though. Like, they don't know the story behind that. Like that, they don't know what your situation was or how the hunt transpired. They're looking at the end result, and unfortunately, that's what a lot of the stuff gets judged by. And I wish more people would appreciate the entire story behind some of these things, and hopefully, little by little, we can kind of influence that.
Yeah, I think that's the right